Soon. There we go. It started. So I'm Senchi and I'll be your host for the event today. And we've got Ruth who will be speaking to us first. And she's currently at university at the University of Cambridge, I think, or Oxford. Oxford.
It's Oxford, not the other one.
Yeah, there's a clear rivalry there. Oxford. So silly of me. Yeah. And some of our other speakers include Abby and Kelvin, who are co-founders, and I'll try and chip in every now and again too. So we hope that you enjoy, and some of your pre-submitted questions are on here, and feel free to ask any other questions that you have on the chat as well. So we'll begin, and for the co-founders that couldn't be here, they all helped to organize it. So we have Dana and Tasnia and David and Esther, who all did their best, but they helped us organize this event. So big thanks to all of them too. So let's begin. Ruth, would you like to introduce yourself for us, please?
Hello, everyone. My name is Ruth Flame, and as I was introduced in such a lovely way, I have actually just recently graduated from my undergraduate law degree at the University of Oxford. Thankfully, I got a first, so I'm actually back in Oxford. I moved back today, hence the kind of boring background. I promise I will decorate this room at some point. And I'll be doing my master's in law, which is called the Bachelor of Civil Law. So yeah, I'm an old woman now, actually. I'm really old, and I did my A-levels a long time ago, but for those of you who are interested, I studied law, psychology, and sociology. So that's about it.
Thank you so much, Ruth. So Ruth will be answering our questions on vacation schemes. So before we begin, could you tell us a little bit about what a vacation scheme is, and then we'll go on to some of the questions that people have asked.
Yeah, so for those of you that don't know, there's kind of two routes you can go down when you want to if you want to become a lawyer after your law degree or law conversion course. For full clarity, I did vacation schemes. I got a training contract. I have since changed my mind. I am going to the bar, but I have done vacation schemes. I've had plenty of interviews, so that's why I'm here sharing my insight. So essentially, vacation scheme is work experience if you want to become a solicitor. So you'll be working in a law firm, and potentially some of the big ones in London you've probably heard of, like Slaughter and May, Linklaters. Also, there are plenty of smaller firms. Whereas to become a barrister, you do things called mini pupilages, which are like the same thing, except instead of working with solicitors, you're just working with barristers.
Thank you. So the first question that we have is, how do I make my vacation schemes application stand out? So what do you think someone applying could do to help their vacation scheme stand out?
So aside from the obvious, so if you do have grades you can put down, which I know we come to this later, but by the time you'll be applying for vacation schemes, you should have some grades, some exams that you've sat at university. And obviously, the better your grades are, the more that helps, but that's not the be all and end all of the whole process. So aside from that very obvious and basic fact about, they want the intellectual ability, you really should think about tailoring your application to the firm. So just a little bit of background. With vacation schemes, you typically make paper applications, and then you'll be invited to assessment centres, which are often a whole day or sometimes just an interview. So on paper, you really need to do everything you can to stand out, because it's so much easier to impress in the assessment centres. So I would say really tailor your application to the firm and show them that you've researched them on their website, on Legal Cheek and websites such as that, so you can find out what their niche is. And I will be the first to admit that honestly, it's quite difficult to find sometimes, but you have to pick out something that kind of you're like, oh, I really like, say, Slaughter and May, because I really like their focus on mergers and acquisitions. They did this particular case that really interested me, and that's something I want to do. They really want to see that kind of thing. Another thing that's really useful is that, especially when you come to apply for VAC schemes, you might not have that much previous legal experience, but you'll definitely have some experience. And what they want to see is you saying things like taking my own example, I worked part-time throughout my time at sixth form. So that shows things like I have great time management skill because I did my A-levels and I worked at the weekends. It also shows I can work as a team, I can collaborate with others, I can also take direction well. And I gave various examples of where I specifically showed that. So regardless of how much experience you have or otherwise, you really need to get that in there and show that you have these transferable skills that will actually make you a good lawyer beyond like the basic, I know what the actus reus of murder is, that kind of basic stuff. And then finally show, I guess it kind of links to the tailoring it to the firm, but show a real genuine interest and passion in the law, in the specific area you're saying you want to go into. It doesn't have to be genuine. I'm going to be the first to hold up my hands and say, I've wanted work experience and I have lied through my teeth and been like, yes, I love family law. I love hearing about people's divorces. I really don't. I find it quite depressing. But what you have to do is, even if it's not honest, you have to at least feign that interest and that passion. And you have to kind of really elaborate on that. It's not enough to say, yeah, I like commercial law.
What's your CVC for?
I don't know if that was a question for me.
I think so, yeah.
Can you repeat that? Sorry, it kind of cut out at the beginning and I will keep my ears open. Okay, maybe it was.
Adam, if you have a question, you can put it in the chat. Oh, that's okay. Don't worry about it.
It's okay. Yeah. So that's basically the summary. Last thing, show this real genuine interest and passion.
Thank you. Okay. So our next question is asking, what would an automatic no be when you or someone who's looking for applicants is reading a VAC scheme? Like, is there something that's like a big no? Like in personal statements, for example, we often have things like, don't say that, since I came out of my mother's womb, I wanted to do this so badly. Is it similar for VAC schemes or is there anything else?
So yeah, I think I'm going to go over kind of three sort of things I think you should never do. And that if I was looking at an application, I'd probably immediately do the, hypothetical, like throwing it in the bin type thing. So the first one, and this sounds so basic, but you would not believe how often this happens. And I mentor people to get into Oxford. So I've seen this in personal statements, and this applies across the board. Spelling and grammar. If you're making mistakes and you're submitting applications with mistakes in, that is just an automatic, complete red flag, because it's not because anyone's expecting you to be perfect. Obviously, to be a good lawyer, you have to have a firm grasp of English, the English language, and being able to convey yourself well. And that does involve, being able to speak in grammatically correct sentences and spell things correctly. But I still smell. See, I can't even talk. I still spell receive wrong and things like that sometimes. Happens all the time. But what it does really show is if you submit something with spelling mistakes, grammatical errors, it shows that you haven't even taken the care to proofread your document. And that straight away, for want of a better word, it shows laziness. And no one at a law firm wants someone that's lazy or doesn't care, because that is, when I read something like that, that is the first thing I think, like, this person did not care about this application enough to even check through to see if things were spelled right, or to get someone else to look at it. That's my best advice for picking out errors. Get your mum, your sister, your best friend, your uncle, get someone to read it, because they'll be able to spot it. So that's like number one. If you do that, I'm sorry, that is a really bad thing to do. There's no way of beating around the bush about that. The second one, and this kind of links sort of to what you were saying and kind of what I said previously, is kind of speaking very generally or saying the cliche, I've always wanted to be a solicitor, because let's be real, most of us don't really know about the legal routes until we're like late sixth form, early university. So let's be a bit straightforward and less cliche. They read millions of those things and it's just not true, and everyone knows it's not true. But also, like I said, just speaking very generally, I really like commercial law, with no elaboration, no specific examples, nothing tangible to tie that to. Because I can say, I really like science. I don't, by the way, like, it's definitely not my thing. But, that's not proving anything. And I think that it's really important to be specific. It's really important to elaborate on your ideas. And this kind of links to my third and final thing, is not expanding upon what you've learned from things, not expanding upon your points. So for example, if I want to say, I would be a great fit for your vacation scheme because firstly, I have excellent people skills. If I stopped there, everyone's going to read that and be like, okay, you know, you haven't really said anything. You need to say, I have excellent people skills. For example, in my second year of university or in year 12, I was president of the debate society or something like that. And then you say, and in this role, I had to do X, Y, Z. And you're demonstrating that you have these skills. No one will just believe you as much as, you know, I'm sure you're being perfectly honest. No one's just going to take your word for it. So you have to expand upon every little thing that you say. And that's kind of all of it.
Thank you. Yeah, this definitely applies to applying to anything really, especially for year 13s right now who are like on the tip of submitting their UCAS applications or first drafts. Being vague and just stating things is never enough. It's such a big thing that we've been told to. Excuse me, sorry. Okay. But you always have to elaborate, and it's really important to get that detail in and to make sure that you're explaining things and not just putting things in there that aren't relevant. So we've got lots of advice on personal statement too, if anyone's looking for it, on our Instagram. So if you have more questions or concerns about that, go and have a look there. Moving on to our next question is, when do we apply for these law back schemes? Can you apply for them in the first year of university, before uni? And are there any coming up that you know of that people here could apply to?
So for full-blown vacation schemes where you spend, you know, between 2 weeks and a month at a law firm, you're really looking at second year of university onwards for these applications. They really don't like to see first years or anyone that's not started their degree, mainly because you don't have the tangible knowledge or skills to necessarily apply to vacation scheme, and it means that you won't get the most out of it. So for vacation schemes, it's going to be second year onwards, and you kind of start thinking about it roughly around now in the academic year, so right at the beginning of your second year. And there are usually 3 different lots of vacation schemes. You'll have winter vacation schemes, which some firms offer, but they are often prioritized to people in further on in their legal career, so people in their third year, for example. Spring schemes, which some firms offer, which are generally about 2 weeks long, and they'll be in the Easter vacation. And then summer schemes, which every firm will offer, they will be longer. You're talking 4, 5, maybe even 6 weeks. And so the applications for the winter schemes obviously close earlier. And I applied for my spring and summer schemes in around Christmas time. I spent the most, it's really dull, I'm sorry to bore you all with this. And you will probably have to do this one day, so I'm sorry in advance. I spent most of my Christmas vacation, aside from doing lovely Christmassy things and seeing my friends and family, doing vacation scheme applications. And that is unfortunately the reality of that. In terms of other stages of your legal career, obviously you can apply in third year, you can apply when you're doing your master's, you can apply at any time for a back scheme, but not before second year of uni generally. There are some first year schemes that firms offer. I know Linklaters specifically does one. A lot of the bigger Magic Circle firms do. And again, that'll be something you'll be thinking of applying of around like Christmas time, maybe just after of your first year. And it won't be the same, but some of them offer you opportunities whereby if you get in, you'll kind of progress then onto the vacation scheme and things like that. You can also become a campus ambassador, which doesn't really have any work experience attached to it. But if you do really like a firm, it's a good way of showing that you understand them, you get them, you're really committed to that firm. So it's something to apply for. I have friends that were campus ambassadors, and essentially you just kind of promote their events around your university. You might help out at like the Freshers Fair, the Law Fair, things like that. Usually get a bit of free stash, like hoodies, water bottles, quite a nice job. And then for anything earlier than that, it's much rarer. And what I think for those of you that are in year 12 and year 13 that are wanting perhaps a bit of tangible legal experience, I would say either through your school. So if your school has a careers advisor, definitely approach them about this. But go and approach either via your school or yourself, your like local high street law firms. And by high street law firms, I mean the small individual boutique law firms, so not the big chains of law firms, just like your family solicitors down the road, for example. And they are much more happy to give work experience to younger people. It's something to put on your CV. It looks good generally. You don't have to do this by any means, but when you're at sixth form, that's definitely the best way to get experience. I know that there are some schemes run and they're generally focused on underrepresented groups. So if you're state school educated, like I went to a state comprehensive, ethnic minorities, there's some LGBTQ things, a lot of focus on women, particularly in commercial law. So you might find some of those events in reaching out for people in year 12 and year 13, but typically at that point, it's going to be more kind of low-key experience, and that's more of you taking a proactive approach and reaching out. So if you do want to do that, I'd always recommend sending a really nicely worded email, get your parents to help you, a teacher, just be really polite about it, attach your CV. You should have one. I know that at this stage in your life, it may be half a page long. That's fine. You just need to start somewhere. And I think it's good to put yourself out there. So that's kind of an overview of like the kind of application cycle.
Thank you. Yeah, it's all super valuable advice. I think Abby, one of our co-founders, will be talking later about the Clifford chance scheme that she was on, which offered her, I think, a first year vacation scheme because they'd completed it. But obviously the process of applying to that and going through that is quite rigorous too. So just picking up on all the skills that we talk about here will benefit you in the long term. And so make sure you're taking notes, and this recording will be up on our YouTube channel too, so for you to look back on. Our next question is asking, other than good grades, what do law firms look for in candidates when selecting them for training contracts?
Okay, so I think I've briefly touched on this before, but I'll kind of elaborate on it in detail, because I think when you are doing applications, it works so well to almost have like a checklist in your head and go through and think, okay, have I shown this? Have I shown that? X, Y, Z, and go through this list. So grades, obviously, and kind of like coupled with that, an intellectual ability that you don't necessarily just have to show through grades. So you might have done something particularly intellectually challenging at university, like competing in a mooting or debating competition, that kind of thing. And that can bring that in. But that's a very, good grades, intellectual ability is just kind of like the first thing you want to tick off. And it's quite easy to show. So very simple. Moving on from that, and kind of what I touched on earlier, is a very specific and tangible interest, not just in the law, but in that specific area that firm practices in, be that family law. Often for big law firms, you're looking at commercial corporate law here, criminal law, and you really need to expand upon that, talk about why that interests you, what specifically about it interests you. So, speaking from my personal experience, VAC schemes were useful to me because I'm interested in commercial law and I want to go to the commercial bar. So for me, as an example, I find commercial law really fascinating because not only do you have to grapple with like legal principles and making sure the law is clear and coherent on a doctrinal basis, you also have to think about what do businesses commercially need? What is commercially sensible for businesses? And what makes perfect legal sense might not make perfect commercial sense. So that's kind of just an example of a really quick way you can kind of summarize why you find something so interesting. And I'm a massive nerd, I will be the first to admit that. But do you know what? Embrace it. You really have to be in applications and things. You just have to show your passion. Next, you kind of need those people skills, those teamwork skills, particularly for VAC schemes, because you're working as a solicitor. You're not a solo barrister out on your own, like I'm going to be one day, because I just, can't stand working with people. That is a joke, of course. But as a solicitor, you really are part of a huge team. And what you need to show is your ability to work well with other people, get on well with other people, perhaps some leadership skills in there. Not that you're going to become senior partner tomorrow, but even when you're like a more junior level, there might be times when you delegate, when you're working in a team. So those kind of skills are really important, and they're important for anything. And again, I think it's something that you would all find something in your life that you can say, I had a part-time job, or I did this society at school. There's going to be something that you can draw upon to demonstrate that experience. And people skills, I mean, are quite frankly essential in life. As much as people are irritating, you know, we've all got to get along somehow. Then you kind of move on to your very necessary legal skill of being able to analyze and pick apart things. So lawyers spend their whole lives analyzing cases, analyzing witness statements, analyzing evidence, or if you're going to work in like a big commercial law firm, you're more advising your client about what legal things they must satisfy to complete this merger. So you're analyzing every single thing. And that's a really, really important detail that you need to be able to show. And again, you know, at a younger stage, you're not going to be able to demonstrate these, like, you're not going to be able to say, oh, I actually worked on a merger and acquisition. I mean, unless you did, which is fantastic, but chances are it's not. But it's going to be something like, I'm going to use mooting because I've done a lot of it. And I also think, even if you want to be a solicitor, I think everyone should do public speaking, but that's a hill I'm prepared to die on. But like when I'm mooting, I have to be analytical. I have to look through the cases, pick apart the moot problem, and really think about that. And that's something, again, you can quite easily throw in there. And then finally, and I know we're going to move on to talk about this in a moment, so I won't go into too much detail. If you're applying for a commercial law firm, which most people do, at least one, you need to be commercially aware. And I know that's basically a buzzword that doesn't actually mean that much in reality, but it is everyone's favorite phrase to use. And essentially it means you need to know what's going on in the business world, and you need to know how businesses might be affected by certain things going on, by certain legal changes, so that when you're advising a client about this merger, you're not only thinking about the legal applications, say, so obviously the Competition and Markets Authority has to make sure that it's not a monopoly or something like that, but it's also, does this make business sense for them, given that they're a holiday company and, you know, we're back in 2020 at the beginning of the pandemic, and you know, there's this strange new virus, does that make commercial sense? So those are kind of the core things that you really need to demonstrate.
You were right in saying that we'll talk about this next, because our next question is, how can lawyers build their commercial awareness other than just reading the newspapers?
Yeah, so commercial awareness, like I said, it's quite a difficult thing. It's something that I still not struggle with in like a conceptual way, but it's hard to stay commercially aware, particularly as young people who not only have other more interesting things going on, also aren't kind of in the business world. So I know you said other than reading newspapers, and I will come on to other ways, but I cannot emphasize enough, I know it's really boring. But you do have to do the old Financial Times, Slog, The Economist. But like BBC News has a business and technology section, right? So you do kind of have to do that. And I know it's really boring. And I can't make that better, I'm afraid. Some things are just really dull. But then other than reading newspapers, something that I really enjoy is, it's still kind of reading-esque, but websites like Legal Cheek or things like that or similar websites, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about, like Chambers Student, that kind of thing, do have kind of similar things. They often have commercial awareness updates. So they literally tell you what to be commercially aware of without you having to like go through the Financial Times and think, oh, this is about Bitcoin, that's about this, I don't know what's going on. So those websites are really good. And honestly, use those to like hone in on a subject, and then maybe read like the newspaper articles and you know, so on and so forth. Also, if you can't bear to read a newspaper, watch the news. I know it's also probably equally unbearable at times, but you know, it's another way to get it in. There's also some really good podcasts, or even snippets of podcasts you regularly listen to. So I'm a big fan of Reasons to be Cheerful by Ed Miliband, and a lot of what he talks about gets quite political. So not all of it's going to be relevant, but naturally a lot of things come up that are. So there have been a lot of episodes about climate change, and climate change is something we're all so aware of just in our day-to-day life, but that is a massive commercial issue for some companies. So think about all the big oil companies, you know, what's their next move going to be? Or companies that produce lots of plastic packaging, like, are they thinking 10 years down the line, is this even going to be legal to produce? And what kind of contingency measures do you have to have in place? I mean, at the moment, we're having a current gas crisis, which, I mean, probably doesn't affect any of us. I don't have to sort out my gas. I'm living in uni accommodation, but things like that. There was also an episode recently about Bitcoin. So finding almost like political podcasts and things to listen to often also really highlight issues that are going on that are always going to impact the commercial world. And while it's great to say, oh yeah, pick a niche topic, everyone don't talk about Brexit. Well, when Brexit happened, that was like the thing to talk about. So maybe don't be super mainstream, but also, there's only a limit to what they will expect of you. And I would really recommend, when you are coming to do these applications, is just narrowing down. Don't try and be commercially aware about everything, because it's impossible. So pick one or two things that really interest you. So for me, it was, when I was doing my VAC scheme applications, it was the future of Bitcoin, and Facebook at that time had proposed creating their own cryptocurrency. And now central banks are proposing a cryptocurrency. So I was like, okay, I'm going to really focus in on crypto. This is something that affects businesses. Are they going to accept it? What's the future of it? Are more businesses like Facebook going to move into it? Loads of questions about banking regulation as well with cryptocurrency. So it was like a wealth of issues. And also, on the climate side of things, I focused on like hydrogen power, and how at the time it was like starting, they'd flown a drone that was powered by hydrogen, and what that might mean for like the energy sector in the future, and what that might mean for car manufacturers, what that might mean for just general consumers. And so that's almost like your generic climate change, but just a tiny bit more specific. And then it just gives you something interesting to talk about, because I promise you, like back to the Brexit example, everything that is there to be said about Brexit and business has been said. And you really don't want to be stuck in that position where you're telling them something they have heard literally a million times before, because as much as you might be a great candidate, it's just gonna, for want of a better word, it's probably going to irritate them. So yeah, that's my take on being commercially aware.
Thank you. And another place to get great really short news updates is on our Instagram. Again, we have our updates every Wednesday, where although it's not in so much detail, it's a great place to start if you're lost for other place. But I'm sure you won't be, because Ruth has told us plenty of places that we can begin. Just a quick note, it says that the meeting only has 7 minutes left, but we have quite a few questions left. So just rejoin on the same link and we'll continue. It's just because we don't have the Zoom Premium, because students on a budget, so you have to make do with what you get.
Sorry, I have a question.
Go on, Rohan. Yeah.
Hi, sorry to interrupt, but I have a dying question. With law, is there a specific A levels to choose for law? As I've chose philosophy and ethics, geography and business. Is that suited for law?
So no universities, to my knowledge, and please do correct me if I'm wrong, have any subject requirements for law, because a lot of people come to it. I mean, I did A-level law, but a lot of places don't even offer it. So it's not like your medicine, you need to know, maths, chemistry. I think I've just listed two that aren't required, but you know what I mean, you get the point. So I think most universities will say, I mean, those are absolutely fine. There's no set route to law. They like to see at least one essay subject. So if you were doing maths, physics, and further maths, they might question why you'd applied to law. And also it's more difficult to show you have the essay writing skills. But essay-based subjects are fine. I did entirely essay-based subjects. I also have friends that did classics, biology, and chemistry. So she just had one essay-based subject and she got in to Oxford as well. So yeah, that's all I can really say about A-levels. It doesn't matter too much.
And also with your point about extra reading about global warming, that sounds interesting. So you're saying that if you read, if you have gained extra knowledge with reading The Economist and about global warming, for example, like listening to podcasts, can that help you evaluate your points in law as well?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that with commercial awareness, like I was saying, it's always, you need to have something. So even if that is just a basic general global warming point, that's fine. No one's going to, mark you down, as it were, for that. But I do think it's nice. And I think it's a good idea to maybe read a bit deeper into just one niche area, be it plastics, be it fossil fuels, the future of hydrogen, anything interesting like that. And I think that will, it will really help for vacation scheme applications. If you're at the kind of personal statement stage, I know this isn't massively relevant, but obviously you need to talk about what interests you about the law in your personal statement. And if that is, oh, the law is going to have to adapt to human beings doing loads, that's really interesting. So yeah, I think, being generally commercially aware is probably good for everything.
And yes, thank you for this. Another question you remind me asking, when it comes to GCSEs, do they really matter for law or not really?
So it depends upon your university. At Oxford, I have some of the worst, I'm saying it like in quotations, GCSEs that I know of anyone. So they matter because when you apply, they're the only tangible evidence they have of your academic ability. You see what I mean, to date, unless you've done AS levels, but who knows what's happening there. I'm an old woman. I don't really know what's going on anymore. But they do matter to an extent, and it depends on the university you apply to. The more competitive the university, the more they're going to matter. And I'm not saying that, non-competitive universities are bad. It's just kind of like a fact of, if a course is oversubscribed, they're gonna have to find a way to narrow down candidates. And unfortunately, a lot of the time, like for Oxford Law, you have to get a B in maths GCSE. Don't ask me why, because we don't do maths, but it is just one of those like slightly silly requirements.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll have some more I know someone's just going to ask a question. We'll be talking more about it in terms of applying to programs like Unique and K+ as well. And Abby and Kelvin have both had experience with their own GCSEs and how it's affected them and their experience too. So stick around for that and you'll learn more about those schemes as well. Go ahead, ask your question, Ojasvi.
Thank you. So I just wanted to ask you, I'm going to be starting my law degree at Durham University in a couple of weeks from now. And you were talking about how we can't apply for vacation schemes in our first year, but you also mentioned that there are certain first year schemes. So can you elaborate on what I can do to improve my experience in my first year?
Yeah, so as briefly as I can, because I know we're running out of time. So I unfortunately am not knowledgeable specifically anymore because, like I said, I'm aging rapidly. But a lot of big law firms, like I'm pretty sure Clifford, they do something called like a Spark scheme, and it's something you can apply to in your first year, and it's almost like a stepping stone. So I would really look at like the Magic Circle law firms or the bigger ones, like Silver Circle, whatever they're called. So I'm thinking like Linklaters, Clifford, Slaughter and May. My mind's gone blank. You guys know where I'm going with this. And a lot of them do have first year schemes because they have the resources. So I would say that's definitely the place to start, the big money, loads of money law firms. And their applications, they'll obviously be looking for something different than for a VAC scheme because they know you're at an earlier stage. So they're really at that stage looking for a lot of potential. And I think if you get your foot in the door early, which I didn't because I was too busy partying in my first year, don't do that. It really does help you in the long run. So I would definitely spend some time, even now before university fully starts for you, really just investigating, noting down when the application deadlines are, noting down when they open, and starting to do a little bit of research. And I think that's the best way to get the ball rolling.
So other than like commercial awareness through newspaper articles, podcasts, etc., like what else can I do? Since I won't really be able to show my grades or anything like that.
So they're not looking for the same amount of experience. So I would really recommend like staying as commercially aware as you can. If there's anything you can get involved in early on in your uni career, so if that's debating, if you can get involved in a society in any way, just so you can start showing like, those teamwork skills, those analytical skills, maybe a bit of public speaking, that kind of thing. But like I said, compared to VAC schemes, they are looking at a much earlier stage. So GCSE and A-level grades will kind of be their like assessment of your intellectual capability. So, you know, I'm sure you're going to Durham, I'm going to assume, and I'm sure I'm correct, that they're pretty good.
So I'm actually from India, so I did the Indian curriculum. But
okay.
yeah, I got good grades. Yeah.
That's fine. I think they usually ask for like what the equivalent is in terms of like A-level grades. And I'm sure there are calculators online, but they are very used to having international students. You know, at Oxford, there's a lot of people coming here that did all sorts of different qualifications I've never heard of because they went to school, you know, in all sorts of places. So big companies like that are very used to looking at different qualifications. So I wouldn't worry about that at all.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so we probably only have a couple seconds left, so we'll end the meeting and then rejoin and continue where we left off. Begin recording. There you go, it's a very annoying voice, but yeah, we'll be recording again. So let's begin. So our first question is, how do you write a good application for unique, K+, etc.? What sets you apart, and what do you think it was for you guys that set you apart? Abby, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah, so I think for K+, there's like a series of questions about like why you want to study law, like why you think it's the subject for you. And I think that's like really the most important, is getting down like why law. And it's a question we get asked a lot, but I think if you really nail like why you want to study law, whether you've had like an experience in your life that's personal, why you want to study law, or just like I don't know, like something that's like more personal and kind of gets the like the person reading your application more interested. And yeah, I guess for everyone, like why law, the answer is different. So something that's really original and just for I guess the person seeing your application to be able to understand you a bit better. Also I think there's also a section for K+ on like the skills you have and like why you'd make a good lawyer. So I'm really honing on like the key skills. I'm like, you, even if you speak to someone you know who's a lawyer, or if you don't know anyone, you can ask someone who's a law student, reach out to someone on LinkedIn, ask them what are the key skills for a lawyer, that kind of thing. Yeah, so like focusing on like organizational skills, any advocacy work you've done, so like public speaking things, any kind of debate, Model United Nations, bringing up all of those, and then any kind of, I think also quite key. And for K+ as well, there's kind of like a section kind of, it's like geared towards applying for university. So talking about
Abby, I think you've cut off. So while your thing reloads, we'll come back to you and you can repeat what you've said because you missed a little bit of it. So, oh, there you are. Do you want to continue? Adam, I think your mic is not on mute.
Oh wait, what did you hear up?
It was the bit where, so I heard up to, there's a section on K+, but I didn't hear what that section is. So
oh yeah, so there's a section on K+ that asks about like kind of your ambitions like post like A levels, and like what you want to do like degree wise, that kind of thing. So definitely like just being really clear with like what you want to do, the degree you want to study, why you want to study it, if you have like any ambitions post degree, like if you know what kind of sector you want to work in, and then just like evidencing that throughout. So like if you know that you want to study law at university, can you back that up with like an open day you've been on, a taster lecture you've seen, that kind of thing, just to really show like how keen you are.
Thank you. Yeah. So that links in perfectly to one of our other questions, which asks, how many things, so work experience and books, do you talk about? And do you think these books and work experiences are the best way to highlight your interest in law when you're applying to these schemes? Or is there a better way to do so? Kelvin, would you like to answer this for us, please?
Yes, I would say from my experience, I never mentioned the books I did. For example, with Pints and Masons and Bird and Bird, I think I remember them requiring a CV. So on my CV, I would put my work experiences. I would say, oh, I've done this work experience, or I'm a leader, co-leader of my school's law society. That's what I put on my CV. Then on the questions, for example, with unique, you didn't need anything. It was mainly your teacher reference. You just had to meet the eligibility criteria and also have the GCSE grades. Even though my GCSE grades were not all 8s and 9s, it kind of shows that unique still see my potential. So my teacher reference, I knew my teacher reference would be good because I chose the teacher that knows me the best. She knows does all my references for all my law applications. Then, for example, with Pinson Masons or any civil law firm or magic circle firm, you need to make sure you research the firm, their core values on the website, research any news articles that they've done or anything interesting that you can implement into your application process. So I remember for Pinson Masons, I spent time on the application process because I really wanted it. Even though I'm not interested, I actually kind of am not interested in the corporate kind of commercial area, which is so funny. But I would say when you research those values, try and implement it into your life. For example, I would say I always mention something unique where, for example, I was a Royal Navy cadet. I always put that in my application process because not many people are Royal Navy cadets at such a young age, and I was. And I got a leadership badge, and I wasn't able to start cadet on that, and that was quite an amazing achievement. I also mentioned my interpersonal skills that I developed over the years. So you need to make sure you answer that question direct and you spend a lot of time on that question. Your law books that you put in there, that's not necessary. It's not really necessary for any law firm applications. Yes, you're engaging with the law, but what they want to see is that why do you want to be part of this scheme? Why do you want to do work experience with Bird and Bird, for example, or Clifford Chance? What makes you stand out from the regular applicant applying to Clifford Chance? Because a bunch of kids will be in the same position saying, oh, I read What About Law? Oh, I read Letters to Law Student. Generic. So you need to stand out.
Yeah, Abby, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I agree with Calvin. Definitely, I'd stay away from like books and things. I think they're more like personal statement, like uni application focused, and they don't really care so much about them. I think especially like linking stuff to the place you're applying to is also really important for like the university. So like as well on the application, usually they'll have like a list of things that they're looking for on like the front page when you apply before you actually get to the application questions. So just looking through them and using those keywords in your answer, I think is also really key. And again, linking stuff to like work experiences are probably more important. Any kind of law society, if you're in a law society at school. If you don't have a law society at your school, make a law society at your school. Both me and Kelvin did that, and it's been great. I think we've encouraged one of our other co-founders, Anjali, to do it as well. So put yourself out on a whim, do those kind of extra things. That's like what makes you stand out.
Thank you. This all is so like the advice that Ruth gave you is so applicable throughout any applications that you do. The commercial awareness that Kelvin mentioned, it's useful for your VAC schemes, for your personal statement, for your applications to these sorts of programs too. So it's just about staying up to date and actually knowing what's going on around you, and that will benefit you a lot in the long term. So our next question is, what do you think the best skills are to highlight on application? So what skills did you focus on the most? Abby?
Yeah, I can start with this one. So skills wise, I think like I touched on it a bit before about like organization, and that's like a huge one. Organization, time management is also key. Any advocacy stuff. Even if you like speak in an assembly, you debate, I don't know, some people do like mock trial and things like that. They're all really important. Anything that kind of like demonstrate those like legal skills, as well as anything that's like requires a lots of like forming coherent arguments and like being critically, like being analytical, and like critical, developing your critical analysis skills. Those are all really helpful. And as long as you can, I think it's important to have those skills, but as long as you can back them up with evidence, because that is like anyone can list off and say like, I'm really organized, I can balance my studies with playing football on the weekend, so that shows that I can manage my time. It's like, don't do things like that. You need to show that you actually have those skills and demonstrate that in your application. And I think that's what makes the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful application.
Thank you. Yeah. So leading off of that, for Kelvin, another question we have is, are there any particular hobbies or extracurriculars that are considered beneficial towards your application? Obviously, we've mentioned having a law society or attending a law society and linking things you do into your personal skills, but is there anything else that you would like to mention?
Yeah, I would say, like, if we're talking about personal statements and applications, any experiences is an experience. Anything you learn from that experience. For example, I now work at Pizza Hut. It's amazing to see how much my time management has worked. I'm balancing my studies as well as doing work now, which is crazy. I never thought I could be able to do that. My customer service skills, my interpersonal skills, handling difficult customers, that's applying. That can be applied to law when you I don't know, you're talking to a difficult I don't know, someone you're defending in court, and the person isn't giving you all the details. You know, where, for example, in a news show where, I don't know, let's say Annalise Keating was defending someone in court, and that person didn't give her all the advice she needed, and in court she just finally found out, oh, this person, I don't know, killed X, Y, or Z. Yeah, like, I've learned, I would say that you don't need the law work experience. And that's a lot of things people like ask me, oh, Calvin, I haven't done work experience. I haven't done this. A lot of people at my school ask me that, and it's a bit annoying because I post a lot about work experience. But you don't need work experience for law. Like, for example, say if you've helped out at school, or you've done, like, I don't know, an after school assembly or anything, or you spoke at something, or you've done BBC Young Reporters, because I know a few of my friends have. Like, I think the most unlaw related work experience I've ever had is just me literally speaking at my assembly when I was in secondary school. That was literally, and I learned how to advocate for myself. And my cadets, I did a leadership course, which has really changed my perspective on a lot of stuff. And I can actually lead a team very well. And I've noticed that myself. So yeah, just make sure whenever you relate your work experience, just make sure you can back it up. And in your personal statement, what I've learned is that you need to make sure, say, for example, you're applying for something, you need to make sure everything interlinks and it flows. That's a problem I'm having with my personal statement right now. And I need to make sure I fix that up. So everything needs to flow. And you also need to be able to back it up. Why? Always back it up with the why, always with the evidence, always. And I've learned that. Ruth, that just passed, she's always telling me to do that. And I need to really, like, drill my personal statement. So that's one key piece of advice I would give you.
Thank you. So what do you think is something that you absolutely need to have on any application? And Abby, I guess, what do you think was the difference between your, like, the rejections that you got and the way you applied to those schemes versus your consistent stream of, like, acceptance? What do you think changed in that time?
I think for me, like, for university, like summer schools and things, I think what Calvin said about, like, backing things up, evidence is the huge thing that changed kind of like how I was applying for things and the applications I was handing in was research. Can you guys still hear me? Yeah. Yeah. And researching firms and making sure that you have your commercial awareness to back it up. And again, like, linking things together. Like, I think for me, like, the Linklaters Making Links challenge was one that kind of had a different application process. It wasn't an application process. You submitted like a PowerPoint presentation kind of thing about, like a topic. Whereas lots of the newer ones I've done require more research about, like, why would this application benefit you? So I kind of link it back to skills, but also link those skills to, to something that the course has in specific. So look up what the course will provide you with. So if it's a course that has, gives you a mentor, or a course that kind of exposes you to, like, the corporate legal field, link that to something that you already have and say how that will develop your skill that you already have further, or like how that will expand your knowledge. Like, for me, I linked the experience part of the Clifford Chance Access program, and I said it would benefit me by allowing me to expand my understanding of the relationship between law and other key sectors, so like finance and things like that, because I hadn't really had much experience in finance previously. And then I linked those kind of experiences to something that I was interested in. So, like, you can also link it to, like, clubs and stuff you've done. So I went on a Modern United Nations conference that was about climate change, and I linked that to some work that Clifford Chance had done that was to do with renewable energy sources. And I talked about, like, wanting to look into that more.
Thank you. Kelvin, would you have anything to add?
I don't really have anything to add. I've literally covered most of it.
Yeah.
I would just reiterate. I would just reiterate again. Just back up your points always. Like, everything usually interlinks anyways. You usually find out that you've done a lot of experience in your life anyways. So like, if we base on the topic of personal statements, if you find that you've not done anything for law, it's really not that like bad, because we were in COVID-19, I'm sorry, but not many people knew about work experience in COVID-19 for law. Not many schools really offered it or said, oh, go apply for this program. For example, when I wanted to apply for the new College of Humanities Law Mentorship Program, I literally had no work experience. Even with the Pathways to Law, that was the first ever application process I've made ever. And it was interesting because I remember my application for Pathways very well, because I literally just said, I'm a year 12 student, I do 6 subjects, I have an interest in the criminal justice system, and I aspire to be a barrister, and I want to study law. I literally put those 4 things and I got in. And it was funny because I was direct and I had no legal knowledge. And it was funny because now the way I answer my application process, like application questions, is so different. Like, I haven't attended any webinars. I've just taken advice from like loads of firms and what they've said. And I just make sure that whenever I answer the questions, I make sure I go in detail, like very much in detail. And I make sure it's very key. Like, I always put commercial awareness. Like, I'm really like, especially with the Magic Circle firms, you just kind of have to, it's not even a thing you can shy away from. You actually have to put, oh, I keep up to date with legal affairs and stuff like that. So yeah.
Go on, Abby.
Yeah, on the topic of legal affairs, especially for like the bigger firms, a huge place where you can get that, like when I was talking about the Clifford Chance application and some of the advisory work that I'd seen about like renewable energy sources, that I found from the firm website. And you'll find that most of the firms will have, like when you go on their website, they'll have like a news section, and it will have articles written by the lawyers who are on those deals and who are taking part in that work. So having a look at those and reading through those, and even if you're using some of the key phrases or like the name of the company that they're doing the work for, or if that's something that you're really interested in, keep on top of those kind of things and link, like even if it's like a story that you've read and then you go and research it further, like make sure that you know about it and you're knowledgeable about it, so it doesn't sound like you're just name dropping. But if you know and understand it, that's a great way to link that commercial awareness back.
Thank you, that's perfect. Our next question is about any upcoming schemes that you guys know of, and probably like around about when you guys applied for most of yours, and do you think there's anything that you can do last minute, as well as a specific question that asks, are there any good programs for Oxford, and what are the chances for Oxford if you've not done any of these schemes? I know Ruth had to leave us, so she would have been very helpful, but she has mentored Kelvin immaculately, so I'm sure he can help us out with this. So Kelvin, go right ahead.
Yeah, so my first question is anyone in year 12 on this Zoom meeting? Because if you're not in year 12, then I don't really, like, is anyone in year 12? Just raise your hand if you are.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna guess.
Rohan.
You're in year 12. Okay, that's great. So there's a Sutton Trust Pathways to Law program is open. I kid you not, if you need help, message me on the UpLaw account and I will help you apply, and I probably can get you in. Just saying, like, I know how to answer that question very well. I love the Pathways program, so I'd say if you're in year 12, apply for the Sutton Trust Pathways program. Also, I've nearly finished making a work experience pack for any year 12 that are on here, and I will upload it. Or like, I'll make an announcement on the IG story saying, oh, if you're in year 12 and you want a pack with all the work experiences and how to answer application like questions, please just message me and I'll send it to your email, because I think it'll be very beneficial. Like, I know in year 12, I researched the hell out of work experience because I knew that my GCSE grades were not the best. So I needed something to back me up. I would say for any year 13s on here, I know if you turn 18, Kingsley Napley has a work experience program. And the applications close in February. So I'm gonna start my application process for that, maybe after my mock exams, so I can take time, because I've been looking at Kingsley Napley since I was in year 12. And that firm I'm really interested in that firm. So I'm gonna make sure, like, hopefully the way I answer those questions, I'll get in. And then there's Big Voice London. Big Voice London is a social mobility foundation where they offer legal mentoring like morning sessions. They also have a law meeting competition. I recently just applied for that. I don't know whether I'll get in or not, but hopefully I do, because I've never done a meeting competition. So that'll be really good. And yeah, Big Voice London. I'd also say in terms of uni applications, the best way to find anything that university or schemes that they're doing is to actually research the widening access participation on the universities. For example, in year 12, I literally, because I was originally applying to Cambridge, so I made sure I looked at the Cambridge Law Six-Month Conference. That was probably one of the best things I've ever done, because the conference was really good, because I got to literally talk. I can't remember his name, but the academic, I know I've read his book as well. And the fact that I got to talk to him in person, just over Zoom and discuss my problems was amazing. That was the first hand experience I had with legal problems. I also applied, with the Sutton Trust, I think if there's any law undergrads here, there's a Sutton Trust plus scheme where you can apply for in undergrad, which will really help you, because they can help you with how to answer applications for back schemes and stuff like that as well. I forgot to say that. And on the basis of Oxford, I'm on Unique, but I applied to Unique because all my friends said I should, and I thought it'd be really good. I didn't even get onto the law program for Unique because that's how competitive it was. I got put into the intro into social sciences, which is my second choice. So I got taught law by academic tutors. I got taught a bit of economics, PPE, geography, the whole works of social sciences, which is really interesting, because it's interesting to see how law can just literally is around the whole entire world. It literally intersects into every subject. For example, it was we learned something to do with climate change, and I remember in one of the talks I was like, oh, I can apply this to law, which is really cool, and I could talk about it in personal statement. And you not doing anything related to the university does not dampen your chances of getting in. What matters is that if you're applying for law here or you're applying for any other course, your personal statement will probably be the most determining factor, because for starters, we didn't sit GCSE exams, so it's not an accurate measurement. Certain universities know that certain kids are being overpredicted, and it's not an accurate representation of their actual hard work. Or say, for example, in my instance, I was underpredicted, which is okay, because I worked hard throughout year 12. I worked very hard and made sure I did. And I can now apply to Oxford University, which is really cool. So yeah, it won't stop your chances. Just make sure your personal statement is amazing and you know that you put the effort into it. Don't rush it. I've learned that now from Ruth again. Don't rush your personal statements. I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm going to take my time. Make sure if your teachers have your personal statement examples, please look at them, because they will benefit you a lot, because you will be able to see what other people have done or how they've structured their personal statements. And I know on UCAS, a lot of universities are offering free personal statement clinics where you can ask questions or how to expand setting your personal statement. But just to repeat again, you're not doing an Oxford program, it's not going to stop you from getting into Oxford, because they literally said on the Oxford Unique program, there's over to I don't even know how many kids are on that program. There's so many, but they were it's not you don't get a contextual offer from it or anything. You're just on this program because we see potential, and hopefully you apply to the program. But you having that widening participation thing, I would say that it would look very impressive, because Unique is a very competitive program. So it look impressive to other universities. For example, Bristol. I'm interested in Bristol. I applied to the next at Bristol, or Insight into Bristol. I can't remember which one. I haven't heard back from them yet. But that's that can guarantee you a contextual offer. But it won't stop you. You guys are all amazing. The fact that you're here shows that you have interest and that you will do well. So please just have faith in yourself, and don't let yes, I've done a bunch of work experience stuff, but you could be better than me, literally. You could have got higher on that score than me. Your personal statement could be 10 times better than me. You could excel in an interview and literally wow any tutor. So don't be dampened by the fact I've done so much work experience, or that you don't have anything. You're amazing and you do well, if you have the determination to do so.
Yeah, that was perfectly said, Kelvin. Thank you. And especially when it comes to being turned down from work experience schemes as well, it can really have a knock on your confidence. But that's really not a reflection of you as a student. It's just about knowing the right things and knowing what to say. It's Abby is such an amazing future lawyer. She has the biggest commercial awareness and she's so great. And she was rejected, but that's simply because she didn't know what to write before. And then she knew, and it was reflecting in her applications about what an amazing lawyer she's going to be. So it's just about knowing that. And now you have a bunch of tips to help you through. One other thing I want to put in for some general knowledge about law is I'm on a mailing list for Bedford Row, which is a chamber. And yeah, and they do international criminal law webinar series. So if you were looking for something slightly different that's above sixth form level, this was uni-ish level, it was quite difficult to keep up with for me. But it will probably be something quite interesting to look into and have a look at if you're interested in criminal law. And all the people talking, I'm pretty sure, are barristers from the chamber, so you'll get to hear the discussion of actual professionals and ask your question to them as well. Kelvin, go ahead.
I also want to say, just like on that topic, you can also, there's this thing called Gresham College. They have a bunch of law lectures. I literally talked about one of them on Best Statement. That in itself is an experience in its own, because you're intellectually engaging in that and you're analysing and you're critiquing what the professor said. And then you can look, they also have like the presentation, so you can literally take notes on it and make your own, like, I don't know, analytical arguments or whatever for your passive statement. And I would say that there's a lot of videos on law on YouTube. There's a lot, like by universities like Oxford, Cambridge. They have a bunch of, like, they literally discuss different legal topics. And you can also watch that. And that in its own is another experience. So there are many ways to stand out in your passive statement, just to reiterate.
Yeah, it's really just about engaging with the law in any way.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I said Gresham College. I'll type it in the chat. It's it's like a public university college kind of thing, and they do a bunch of lectures and they record it. And they have so many, like, it's really interesting. Like, I've watched a lot from Gresham College. Like, I've learned a lot as well from the law. So yeah.
Thank you. Abby, would you like to talk quickly for us about the relevance of GCSEs in these applications? And Kelvin too, I know that you felt like your GCSEs weren't as good as they should have been. So if you could also just come up with some of the key points that you think you'd want to say. So Abby, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, so I guess like with GCSEs, it's different for every program, and there's like certain things that different programs like value more than others. And I think, like, when talking about like my rejections and stuff, that's also something to bear in mind, is like they also take into account, like, lots of the stuff I applied for was like social mobility, because I'm the first in my family. I'll be the first in my family to go to university if I go, hopefully. Yeah, so that's also something to take into account. I go to a state school, so that's also helpful. And I also have dyslexia, so I count as a disabled student as well. So those kind of things also like go into applications, and they kind of, like, this sounds really bad, but like tally up your privilege and for lots of them, and like kind of take that, and lots of programs, like, it is for like to improve social mobility, so it's for those students that really need it. So for lots of programs, also take that into account. It isn't always just your application is like, it isn't just you're writing a bad application. It can also be like the type of candidate they're looking for. So don't always think that, like, just because you're getting rejected from everything, that's why. However, GCSE wise, I think that for every program it's different. So for some of them, obviously, they're looking for a really, like, academic candidate. So for lots of the Oxford programs, I know they're looking for really high GCSE grades. For lots, especially for Magic Circle, for law firms, they're looking for very, very academic candidates. I know, like, my experience, I've talked about it on UpLaw before, with the Clifford Chance Access program, is there was 1,000 students that applied and only 30 got in. And when I met all those students, all of them were nearly enough 7 to 9 GCSE, like had 7 to 9 GCSE grades, and were near enough all predicted 3 A stars at A level, or at least like 2 A stars at A level. So it was very intense, and I was very shocked because I got on there and on the group chat and everyone's like, what universities are you applying to? And it's people like Oxford, Cambridge, and I'm like, wow. Like, and I think I had just started thinking about Cambridge then. Yeah, so it was a big shock, but definitely some of them care more. But, like, again, don't ever think not to apply for something because of your GCSE results, because they take into account, they look at your application holistically. So for some, it may be like a case of, yes, GCSE results do matter, but don't ever not apply because they're looking for an academic candidate, unless they have, like, very strict, like, you know, like some of them have like a tally point system for how many, like, 9s you get, and if you don't get a certain number of points for all your GCSEs in total, you can't apply. Like, those ones, fair enough, you can't apply, but there will always be something for you out there. There are so many programs from universities, firms, everything under the sun. So if you will find something for you, and if your GCSE grades aren't that high, there'll be something for you, and if your GCSE grades are very high, there will be lots of programs for you as well.
Thank you. Kelvin, go ahead.
Yeah, like, I have to agree with what Abby said. It's just, the thing is, also, in terms of GCSEs, if you have the A-level grades to apply, like, to any top university, any Bustle group, don't think your GCSE grades won't get you in, honestly, because your personal interests will flourish through your application personal statement. Honestly, I'm telling you that right now, because like even talking to my teachers at school, they know my GCSE. I think I have the lowest point average GCSEs out of the whole entire Oxbridge group at my school, which is funny. But then I have a really high IB points because it shows I really like progress. And you don't even reach your full potential at sixth form or GCSEs. That's another factor to even put in. And they also contextualize everything. I'm not gonna lie, they do. The fact I live in like a low economically deprived area, so literally hardly anyone from my area goes to university, which I never knew. I didn't know that until someone told me, which was quite shocking. I didn't know I lived in a low economic area, but they always contextualize everything, and I think they even will contextualize COVID-19. I'm not gonna lie, because we really did not sit exams, so it's not. So the question is, are your GCSEs really representative of your actual character? Maybe for some people, maybe for some, no. The answer for me, no. But yeah, and then like. Also, another thing I just want to say is that even there's a lot of elitism saying, oh, if you go to Oxford or Cambridge, you're all intelligent. Please, I'm telling you right now, whatever university you go to, every single person, they're all trying to break that stigma, trying to break social mobility. Again, social mobility is really important nowadays. You can literally go to any university, come out with a first class degree, but it's how you demonstrate yourself. Like I remember when I was talking to barristers in my bar placement scheme, one of them went to the University of Kent. And then literally, I think there's like only like 2 people. And there was actually one from the University of Bristol. And I think there was even one from like Royal Holloway or something like that. I can't remember. And they were literally just saying that they were even better than Oxford candidates. Don't be disheartened if you don't get into Oxford. Like, I'm not really 100% set on applying to Oxford, if I'm honest. I'd rather go to like University of Bristol, even though Oxford is like, wow, like it's amazing. Literally legal writers, everyone that writes the books goes to Oxbridge. But like at the same time, I can still get the same education. I know that I will still do better. I know that my passion, if you know me, I love law. Like I eat, breathe, sleep law. So don't let that like dampen you. Whatever you need, just make sure you work hard and set your goals. Like I have my little goal list here. And I make sure I follow that. Like I've got mocks in like less than 3 weeks. Have I started revising? No. But do I know that I need to get those grades for those mocks? Yes. And I'll make sure I get them. It may require lack of sleep, but you get the point. You get my gist. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you. And the GCSEs, if you've already sat them and they're in the past, there's really nothing more you can do about it. It's about what you do next. Dwelling on the past isn't going to change it. As cheesy as that is, you just have to look forward and give it your best for the future and try your best not to get disheartened by the past, because it sucks. It really does. I can understand that. But the more you're like, yeah, whatever, I can still do this, the better you'll feel and the more motivated you'll feel. But it's totally okay to feel slow some days and to feel like, super demotivated. But just keep pushing until you have a day when you're not, and you can do it again. Another quick note. It says we have 3 minutes left. Hopefully we get upgraded, but if not, join again. We'll be finishing promptly at 7:30, so you won't be kept here for much longer, but we've got a couple more really important questions. So it will be the same link, and if you could just stick with us a little longer, you'll really benefit. So our next question is, how do you stand out in the Clifford Chance Access application? Any tips? This is for Abby.
Yeah, so I kind of talked a lot about like my application already, but I think the real difference in my Clifford Chance application, which I spent a lot more time on, and I spoke to someone who'd been on the program before in like the cohort before me in the year above, and my friend Rita, and she was really helpful, and she kind of like spoke to me a bit about like answering the questions, and like pointed me in the right direction with like that news thing on the firm website. So I'd say firm research is a huge one. Researching on the firm website, looking on LinkedIn and looking at the lawyers who work at that firm and like what kind of things they do, the areas of practice, they're all really important, and linking those kind of things. And like the firm will always have like these key values that will crop up in the things that they put out on their website, on their social media, things like that. And using those keywords are really helpful, because the people who review your applications, like they're part of the firm, they will know those kind of like key values and the key things that they're looking for. So like kind of throwing them all in your application, as long as it makes sense, as long as it's appropriate, yeah, that can be really helpful. As well, is like also again like uniqueness, making your application unique. I think one of the things that I spoke about in my application that really made it stand out is so one of the questions on Clifford Chance Access is what makes a good lawyer, and I think this originally was like quite difficult, and I had to like go and Google and think about it some more, brainstorm quickly. So plan all your questions before is also really important. And I think one of the huge ones that I thought of originally was like negotiation, and especially in corporate law, like at Clifford Chance, you have to be able to negotiate and communicate really effectively, like with the client and with other parties as well. So I kind of related my negotiation skills to something that I did very specifically, again, like pinpointing on the like a specific experience, and not just saying like I do model United Nations, so I'm a really skilled negotiator. I said like using my negotiation skills in like most notably convincing the United States and Russia to work together on a cybersecurity resolution in model United Nations. And that's obviously quite controversial, and that would shock quite a few people, and it's quite like a unique experience that I've had participating in model United Nations. So I kind of like drew on that to like highlight my negotiation skills, and I think coming up with those like things that are unique to you, and it doesn't necessarily have to be something like that, but it could also be like, I don't know, something that you've done in debate that's quite interesting, like bringing up a specific thing, like not just saying like I participate in debate, I started my own law society, like I do this, I do that, I play football on the weekend, I play netball on a Friday after school, like not just saying those things, it's drawing out that very specific experience and relating it to the skill you have. I think that's definitely what makes it stand out. And like from what I've heard from other people who applied, that's what made them stand out as well. And I think that a huge one that we all kind of had in common on the scheme was like I guess like our passion for the law, and never saying in your application that you're passionate about law. That's kind of what makes your application stand out. And also again, like originality is really important, drawing on that specific experience. The commercial awareness is really key, like showing that you really know about the firm. I think especially for Clifford Chance, and being aware of the work that the firm does. And I think if you speak to anyone at Clifford Chance, they'll tell you, like if you ask them like why did you choose Clifford Chance over any other Magic Circle, because we spoke to some trainees like while on the summer program, like kind of why Clifford Chance over like Linklaters, why Clifford Chance over Slaughter and May or Freshfields or one of the other Magic Circle firms. And they really say like the people, and the people is what makes Clifford Chance Clifford Chance. And I think I definitely found that on the program. Everyone is so lovely, and if you kind of like let your personality shine through, that's super important.
Thank you. Abby, I know you mentioned once we were talking before that the application to your Clifford Chance scheme consisted of a test. So what was that test that you had to do? Could you explain a little bit more? Because that's not something that I've seen in many other places, so it was quite unique. So if you tell us a little bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, so Clifford Chance Access is actually now turning into Clifford Chance Spark. So I think Ruth mentioned it before. Clifford Chance run a first year scheme called Spark, and kind of now Access is turning into a program where, so Access is a 2-year development program, and it leads you kind of like through year 12, like end of year 12, like summer of year 12, year 13, and then going into first year of university. And then essentially, if you do really well and you're really engaged on the Access program, they'll give you a place on Spark. So I guess with that comes obviously more pressure for the application to be more intense, because Spark is again a really competitive program to get onto. So to kind of narrow down the applicants that they have you set the Watson Glazer test, which if any of you guys don't know what the Watson Glazer is, it's a test kind of thing very similar to the LNAT actually, which kind of, it's harder, you can't really learn content for it, you just kind of have to practice. And there's like 4 sections, and I can't really remember all of them exactly. One's about like assumptions, drawing conclusions, and it kind of tests your like legal skills and like would you actually be a good lawyer. So the only way you can really like perfect the Watson Glazer is practice. There are some like guides, and because the What's in Glazer, like usually you like sign in, they let you like, they give you a 24-hour period to complete it. You sign in with your login details, take the test like on your computer at home, and then submit the test that you finished. And you don't hear back the score. And Clifford Chance this year didn't give out the scores. But if you get a place on Clifford Chance Access, you have the same level What's in Glazer score that you would have if you're a first year university student, or you are a vacation scheme applicant, which is obviously really great for anyone who got on the program, and nice to know. Yeah, so I guess for What's in Glazer, if anyone has any questions about that specifically, you can ask. But I think for preparation, the main thing I did is there's loads of free questions online. I didn't like buy a book or pay money to do anything. I just did, as there are so many free ones out there. Did as many free ones as I could. And also, if you don't know, there is a legal YouTuber and her name is Simran. I'm not sure her surname, but her name's Simran. And if you search Simran Law on YouTube, you'll find her. And she actually has, and I think if you search her name on Instagram, she has in her like bio, in her links, a kind of like guide on how to answer What's in Glazer questions, and like how to approach each part of the test. And I literally, like, you're allowed to do this, by the way, it's not cheating. You can have the guide on one side, like split your screen, the guide on one side of your computer and the test on the other. So every time you approach each question, you refer to the guide on how to answer the question, because the guide will like give you an example of how to approach each one, and what specifically in like, because usually there's like a little paragraph or like a phrase underneath, and you have to say like, what is the conclusion they're drawing, or like, what is the assumption made in the paragraph below. And this kind of like guide will tell you what to look for. And I think that was super helpful, and definitely helped me when I sat the test.
Thank you. I think the YouTube channel name, I just searched it up quickly, is Simranjeet Kaurman. I put it in the chat. But Simran Law works perfectly because it's really hard to remember full names of YouTube channels a lot of the time. So we're just about to finish off. So our last question for today is going to be, how can we use LinkedIn to create a good presence on like in the legal sector, and how to manage it in a professional way that gains more attention, and how to make the most of it? Oh, Calvin, go ahead.
Okay, so when I first got LinkedIn, I got LinkedIn like after all my friends on Pathway said, oh yeah, Calvin, get LinkedIn to connect to legal professionals. I think the best way actually is to look at other people's profiles, see what they've done. So I know in my intro it says Pathways, so my little header, Pathways to Law LLC, aspiring, I used to be aspiring criminal barrister, but then I feel like I might change in the future. So I just put aspiring lawyer for now. And I put a co-founder of UpLaw. And then the little biography is quite essential to your LinkedIn profile, because it's a great way for you to demonstrate yourself to other people. So like, for example, state your interests, state like your personal skills, any clubs people really want to know about you, and maybe state like a little paragraph saying why you're interested in the law if your LinkedIn profile is basically for law. And then your experiences is a very good attraction, because say for example people wanted to search to certain trust, my profile sometimes pops up because I always get a notification saying I appeared in 512 searches this week. So that means your experiences are quite like an accolade. One of the few things that really shocks me the other day is that I connected with Crystal Kesey, like a really, really famous barrister, and that was amazing. And like I actually talked to him for like maybe like 2 minutes, but it's still an experience of a lifetime. I'm not going to forget that. And that was just really cool. And it's the other way to like is by liking posts, because when you like posts, you see other people's posts on the LinkedIn network, and you can gain a lot of like traction and stuff. And it's also to gain, I guess, to get more of a presence on LinkedIn is maybe to post about your thoughts and stuff. For example, every time I do a work experience, I will always make a little post saying, I really enjoyed this work experience. I learned this, X, Y, and Z. For example, when I was in Lawyer Up, even though I didn't get to attend every single session because I was quite busy, I still made sure I evaluated and I made sure that I engaged with my audience so they could see what I said. And follow law firms, because when you follow law firms, you can actually get the news of LinkedIn. And LinkedIn has a little news thing every morning, which is quite cool. So you can watch that. And you can also like message so many people on LinkedIn. Like I've mentioned, I message university students, for example. I messaged someone from Leeds the other day because I'm still conflicted on whether or not I want to apply to Leeds, and he really found my belief. So I'm going to apply for Leeds now as well. You can message like solicitors, barristers, all that. I really love LinkedIn because I've learned so much. And also, top tip, if you're really struggling to find work experience, look at someone in the year above that's done work experience and see what they did, because you can probably find out the application and just apply just in time, which is a really good tip. I learned that when I was a LinkedIn noob. But yeah.
Perfect. Abby.
Yeah, so I like to think that I've perfected my LinkedIn profile. Like, people always, like, if I connect with people, this is a huge tip, right? Is connecting people before and after events. If you go to a webinar or even like an event like this, a panel, just like dropping people, like connect with people on LinkedIn and send them a message and say like, oh, like I was at the event today. Like, thank you so much for speaking. I found this thing that you said really interesting. Like, that is such a great way to like make a good impression, because you'd be surprised how many people don't do it. And definitely, like, that's a huge way that like I've made connections is so after I went on the Making Links after I was in the grand final for that, I messaged two of the partners who were on the judging panel. One of them is called Finn and the other one's called David. Some people might know them, but I don't know. And I messaged both of them and I said, hi, like, I was really interested in what you had to say. Like, and both of them were corporate partners. And I was like, corporate partners at Magic Circle Law Firm. And I reached out to them really bravely of me, because it was like the first time I did it. And it was like a promise I made to myself this year is everyone I speak to, I'm going to reach out to them. Because like LinkedIn imposter syndrome and LinkedIn anxiety is so real, but that's a whole nother issue that I'll probably come on to in a second. But I reached out to them, both of them, and I kind of sent them like 5 questions. I think David asked me to send them to his email, and Finn actually asked if we could have another meeting on Zoom. So so I had another meeting with her, which was really, really exciting, because obviously I got to speak one-on-one with a partner, and we talked about everything from like being a woman in law, she's had kids as well, and how like that experience of like working in like such like an intense working space and like having children, because that's definitely something that I'm thinking about in the future. And yeah, like it was just really, really, really helpful, and she helped me so much. And she definitely spoke to me a lot about like knowing that you wanted to study law instead of one of your other A-level subjects, because everyone always asked me like, why law? And for her it was the same, very much the same as me, is like didn't know which one to pick. History, I do history, politics, English. She did nearly the same, so that was quite cool. And she was like, yeah, none of them really stood out to me, and law felt something new, and it combined all my interests. And for me that was the exact same. And honestly, I still, when people ask me why law, I model my response after what she told me, because I just related to it so much. So reaching out to people on LinkedIn builds connections, and it's really amazing. I've also again, saying thanks to people after events, posting is super helpful. Everything that Kelvin said about like linking everything in your bio, I think mine is literally just listed out. Like it's like so like aspiring solicitor, A-level student, Law Society founder and president, Model United Nations Society president, Linklaters Making Links Grand finalist, K+ Law Stream, and Clifford Chance Access. So they're just kind of like my biggest achievements and like the biggest things that I put in there. And then lots of people from those programs will reach out and they'll say hi. That's kind of cool. And then like my about section, if you find me on LinkedIn, you can probably just search it. I actually got this from a TikTok, because I saw this guy like rating people's LinkedIn profiles, which is really sad, but it was very helpful. And that's how I modeled mine, and it's working so far. And then experience wise is literally any experience you have. If you're on a mentoring program, put it in there. If you've done a spring pod work experience, lots of people have done those, put those in there. If you're on the brokerage program, put that in there. Like anything you can think of, even if you're a mentor at your school and you mentor like year 7 students, put that in there. Like anything you want to put on there, you can put on there. And then like obviously GCSEs and everything, those get added on. Lots of my Body United Nations experiences on there as well. So just making sure that like anything that you think could be relevant is probably relevant, and you can put it on there. And people often like they will meet at events and they'll be like, oh my god, your LinkedIn page is so intimidating, but I promise it's not. I haven't done as much as it looks like I've done. It's probably just I put everything I do on there. So that's helpful for me. But that would be my final advice, is connect with everyone. And then also, finally, before I forget, LinkedIn imposter syndrome is so real. Like honestly, when I first joined LinkedIn and I was scrolling through people's pages, I was like, they won an award from Clifford Chance and Linklaters and Freshfields and Slaughter and May. Like, what is going on? Like, I was so shocked because when I first joined LinkedIn, I literally hadn't seen like anyone do anything like firm work experience, or like I had no knowledge of anything that was out there. So when I joined, I was shocked and I felt like I was so far behind and that I hadn't done enough, and I felt so out of my depth. It was making me reconsider my choices, and I literally was, for a week at school, I was applying for everything that I could because I was just so shocked that everyone had done so much. And yeah, it made me feel really anxious for a really long time, and I had to like stop using LinkedIn, which definitely, if you're feeling really overwhelmed and you're finding that hearing about everything that people are doing, and also LinkedIn just shows everyone's successes, and it's something that I have also a legal Instagram account called Legally Abby, if anyone wants to follow that, but I've talked about it before on there. But everyone kind of in the legal social media space just shares their great things, like they got a training contract, they're on a vacation scheme, first year scheme, all these kind of things, but no one really shows you kind of like the downside of that. So definitely like take everything that you see with a pinch of salt, and know that that isn't people's whole lives. Like, people don't just get accepted for everything that they apply for, and people experience rejection and things like that. So yeah, be careful when you're using LinkedIn, because it can be used really great if you follow all those tips I just said about like connecting people, saying thanks, those kind of things. Make sure you do all of that, but also be careful when you're using it, and don't ever feel like you haven't done enough, because you probably have, and the people that you're seeing probably haven't done as much as you think they have.
Thank you. That was such valuable advice and perfect note for us to finish on. In the chat, I've put our LinkedIn for UpLaw in case you're not already following it, and mine, Abby's and Kelvin's LinkedIns as well as the rest of our co-founders. If you have any uni-specific questions for, say, Dana and Tasnia, Tasnia's at Cambridge and Dana's going to LSE, and Esther is also going into university too. So those are great people to talk to you about some more university stuff. And just before you go, we have a little Google Doc form for you to fill out, just so we know what we can improve on and know what you enjoyed the most. And thank you so much for all sticking around. I hope you had a lovely time. And if you have any other questions, feel free to message us. We will all be replying. And yeah, that's it. Does anyone have any last points or any other quick questions that they'd like to ask now? No? Okay. I think we're good.
Yeah, I just want to say quickly, just like a good luck to everyone who's in the chat, whether you're in going to first year of university, at university, in year 12, year 11, year 13, wherever you are, good luck. And I wish you all the best in your legal journey.
Yes.
Have faith in yourself.
You guys got this. Thank you so much for coming. I hope you all had a lovely time, and we hope to see you soon at our next event. Bye.